Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing history unfold right before our eyes today. President Trump's Department of Justice has just dropped the hammer, the first ever federal terror charges against Antifa after that violent ICE facility attack in Texas. And as the indictments are rolling out, something unbelievable is happening today. Portland, the once lost capital of chaos, is turning red. That's right, guys. Patriots are in the streets, flags are waving, and the same city that used to burn under Antifa rule is now celebrating freedom. You remember the scenes, the riots, the Molotovs, the so-called peaceful protests while businesses burned to ashes, but that era is over. President Trump's DOJ just made it official. Antifa is no longer untouchable. And folks, that's not all. Sources inside this investigation are saying that federal agents have begun raiding organizations tied to the dark money network funding these extremists. We're talking about NGOs, shell charities, and billionaire-backed activist fronts that have been quietly bankrolling chaos in America for years. Meanwhile, in Portland, it is full-blown reversal. Patriots, veterans, families, even business owners, they're taking back their city. The same streets that were once ruled by masked thugs are now echoing the chants of USA, USA. Drop a USA down below, folks. This is bigger than just one protest. This is the collapse of Antifa. And this is the moment that President Trump's America draws a line in the sand. So buckle up, guys, because tonight we're going to go deep into how this crackdown started in Texas and why it's spreading nationwide to all 50 states and how the left's own dark money web, it's about to unravel for the world to see. Hit the like button, subscribe, guys. Okay, so today, America finally exhaled. After years of watching mass radicals destroy property, assault officers, and terrorize communities, under the fake banner of justice, President Trump's DOJ dropped the gavel. For the first time ever, Antifa operatives have been federally charged as domestic terrorists. The case? The brutal attack on the ICE facility in Texas that left officers hospitalized and the nation furious. Now, the news hit like a political earthquake. Headline screened, "Terror charges filed." That's right, social media exploded, but the legacy media was absolutely silent. MSNBC spent 12 minutes talking about climate anxiety. CNN cut to a cooking segment, and it was as if someone told them, "Don't you dare mention this victory for law and order." And Americans noticed this. So, you could feel the shift, that quiet, righteous pride when the good guys finally win one. Well, across Texas, horns honked. In Portland, patriots gathered downtown waving flags. It wasn't just about Antifa anymore. It was about accountability. It was about a system that finally fights back. And this was only just the beginning, because what triggered these charges was an attack so violent, so reckless, it shocked even hardened investigators. So I want to go ahead and rewind 45 days, okay? This was just after midnight at federal ICE detention facility outside of San Antonio, Texas. Security cameras captured everything. Four masked assailants throwing Molotov cocktails over the fence, trying to ignite immigration transport vehicles. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds like arson. They carried improvised explosives, black bloc uniforms, and burner phones with encrypted chats tied to known Antifa accounts. Now, when the fire alarms went off, ICE agents rushed in. 2 officers were injured by shrapnel. 1 was hospitalized with burns. The suspects fled but left behind digital breadcrumbs, Venmo transfers, Telegram logs, and even shared documents titled Operation Midway. Now, that file right there connects them to cells in Portland and Chicago, the very same networks long rumored to receive outside funding. Now, within days, federal investigators, they built their case. The attack wasn't random. It was coordinated. And so when the forensic audit traced these payments back to the activist nonprofits, the DOJ finally had proof that this wasn't street protests. This was organized domestic terrorism. That discovery right there kicked off a chain reaction. This was one that would pull in Trump's entire national security team and change how America prosecutes left-wing extremism forever. Now, the scariest thing about Medicare isn't what you see. It's about what you don't see. I'm talking about the blind spots like uncovered services or hidden costs. And it's overwhelming. And honestly, it makes you just want to kind of tune it all out and just stick with your current plan. I totally get it. I really do. In fact, the risk is if you don't review your options, your costs could go up drastically, like overnight, and you could lose out on coverage, or even your plan could disappear entirely. This is why I partnered with Chapter, because they shine a flashlight on every blind spot in your Medicare plan. In fact, one of our viewers, she said, Ron, Chapter found things I never saw in my Medicare coverage. So let me ask you, do you want to continue to drive blindly down the street? Or do you want to join the thousands that are already seeing clearly? Now, most people are calling that phone number right there at the bottom of your screen, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. That phone number again is 909-563-8279. Don't wait till the last minute. Call right now and get this off your plate so that you can actually enjoy the fall without Medicare stress hanging over your head. And when you call, tell them your friend Ron says hello. So when those links between the Texas attackers and national Antifa cells hit the Attorney General's desk, everything changed overnight. I'm saying President Trump was briefed personally in the Oval Office. He reportedly slammed his hand on the table and said, enough. No more hiding behind fake activism. It is time to call this what it is, terrorism. Within 48 hours, Attorney General Mark Branson authorized the first ever Antifa terrorism indictments under the Domestic Security Enforcement Act. Now, the DOJ coordinated with Homeland Security, the FBI, and the U.S. Marshals, executing synchronized arrests across 5 states. Count them, 5 states, guys. Texas, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, and California. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what state you're watching the show from today. Now, at dawn, agents stormed safe houses, seizing laptops, crypto wallets, burner phones, even the financial records that were tied to community organizations that were anything but. Trump went public that afternoon, standing before a massive American flag, and he declared, every officer attacked, every building burned, every citizen terrorized, they will all see justice. And the crowd roared. Patriots cheered online. Meanwhile, mainstream media anchors froze, unsure of kind of how to spin the fact that President Trump had just done what they swore was impossible. He criminally dismantled Antifa's shield of immunity. And that's when Portland, ground zero for chaos, began to shift in ways that nobody expected. So Portland, Oregon, once known as the capital of Antifa, now looks like a completely different country. The same streets that burned back in 2020 are filled with patriots that are waving flags, and they're singing the national anthem. Trump hats are being worn instead of black hoods, law-abiding citizens instead of masked agitators. It all started the morning federal charges dropped. Word spread that multiple suspects tied to the Texas attack had trained with groups in Portland. Local police officers moved in with federal warrants. And then all of a sudden, for the first time in years, Antifa didn't control the streets. The people did. Businesses reopened. Families came downtown again. The ICE facility that once needed barricades now had volunteers cleaning graffiti off the walls. And the footage? Oh, the footage. Patriots standing shoulder to shoulder, brother to brother, peacefully but firmly, while the last few black-clad agitators scattered like some cockroaches. Trump called it the Portland Redemption, and he wasn't wrong about it. In fact, the city that symbolized anarchy had become the stage for America's comeback story. But that transformation, it didn't come without controversy, especially after one shocking arrest lit up social media and drew Trump's attention personally. So just when things were turning around in Portland, the story took a wild turn. Nick Sorter, the conservative journalist who had been documenting Antifa's final protest, was suddenly arrested live on camera. His crime? Filming the truth. He wasn't breaking windows or throwing bricks. He was holding a microphone and asking questions. Within minutes, clips flooded social media. They could hear the crowd yelling, "Why him?" Patriots surrounded the police line chanting, "Free the press." All of this was happening as Nick Sorter was being hauled away. And guess who noticed? President Trump himself, guys. Reports say he was briefed that afternoon telling advisors, if the media won't cover Antifa's crimes, independent journalists will, and we will protect them. Holy cow, guys. President Trump, drop a 47 down below if you support Trump behind what he just did. In fact, this arrest backfired spectacularly. It turned into a lightning rod moment. Proof that while Antifa was being charged as terrorists, local officials still bent the knee to woke ideology. Conservative media pounced, outraged Americans donated to Sorter's legal defense, and within hours, calls for accountability hit the governor's office. Portland thought that they could silence the truth, but instead, all they did was amplify it. Right as the feds moved to strike at the source of the chaos, the money. So then came the hammer blow. early this week, FBI and Treasury Department teams launched simultaneous raids on a network of nonprofit activist fronts believed to be funneling money to Antifa operations nationwide. Now, agents hit offices in Chicago, New York, and San Francisco. They seized hard drives, encrypted ledgers, and offshore transaction records showing millions being routed through shell organizations with ties to a handful of billionaire-backed foundations. Now, the findings were explosive. Federal analysts traced funds from so-called social justice grants directly to the same groups coordinating logistics for the Texas ICE attack. One internal memo even referenced reimbursement for field operations in Portland. Now, by dawn, Treasury had frozen assets worth over $40 million pending investigation. The White House confirmed that foreign entities and domestic nonprofits were under joint scrutiny for potential racketeering. Now, check this out. Trump's message was so blunt. He said, we're not just arresting foot soldiers, we're cutting off their financiers. And then suddenly those who once bragged about funding resistance, they started lawyering up or vanishing from social media. The left called it political persecution, but patriots, they called it justice catching up. But the louder the truth got, the harder the media worked to try to drown it out, setting the stage for the next major battle in this information war. And you could pretty much see it coming from a mile away. Within hours of Trump's DOJ filing terror charges, the corporate press, they went ahead and flipped the switch. CNN called the arrest politically motivated. MSNBC ran a panel claiming Antifa was simply pro-democracy activists misunderstood by right-wing media. Yeah, well, when those dark money raids hit the headlines, not a word. Total blackout. So instead, they obsessed over optics. Why use the word terrorists? They asked, right? Meanwhile, they're ignoring the fires, the assaults, the chaos that made that word necessary in the first place. They called it overreach. Now, patriots called it reality finally catching up. But Americans aren't blind anymore. In fact, millions have tuned out the legacy outlets. They're watching independent journalists, Telegram channels, even community live streams from people that are on the ground. Their information monopoly is broken, and the old guard hates that. In fact, the harder they spin, the clearer the contrast becomes. Citizens are seeing the truth versus elites trying to sell illusions. And as one media empire crumbles, another movement rises, not in the studios, but in the streets. Because what happened next? It wasn't orchestrated by a party or even a pack. This was spontaneous. This was patriotic. This was electric, guys. So about a weekend, America looked totally different. In Portland, fireworks crackled over downtown. Veterans stood beside families that are holding law and order wins signs. People who once whispered about safety now, they walked proudly with their flags. Across Texas, crowds are gathering outside of the ICE offices just to thank the agents who risked their lives. No politicians, no organizers, just ordinary Americans, neighbors, senior citizens, and whatnot. People who are reclaiming pride in their countries. And of course, veterans were out there in full force. You got videos flooding social media of grandfathers saluting, mothers cheering, kids chanting, USA, and just as the convoy horns echoed through the night. It was a sight to see. In fact, the same streets that smelled of smoke now smelled of barbecue and victory. Man, I could go for some barbecue right now. Drop a barbecue down below if you could too. And so what made it powerful wasn't rage, it was relief. Relief that the tide had finally turned, that the people who burned cities for 5 years were finally facing justice. Even critics could not deny it. Order was back, confidence was returning, and Portland, of all places, had become a symbol of national renewal. President Trump, he called it the greatest grassroots comeback since 2016. And for the first time in a very long time, it actually felt true. But this story doesn't stop at America's borders, because what started here is now shaking the rest of the world. So the shockwaves didn't stop at America's shores. By Monday morning, Interpol confirmed several Antifa-linked organizers had fled the country, some to Germany, others to Ireland, trying to outrun U.S. extradition. But it's 2025, folks. Digital footprints don't disappear. The Treasury Department and the FBI, they're already coordinating with European intelligence agencies to freeze overseas assets and trace the offshore accounts feeding this network. So even the EU, they're feeling the pressure. Leaks out of Brussels revealed frantic debates over whether to classify Antifa affiliates as transnational extremist entities. Now, for years, these same groups operated freely across borders under the banner of anti-fascism. But now they're running scared. Meanwhile, you got conservative movements in Canada, France, and Australia. They're all watching Trump's model very closely, pushing their own governments to crack down on these foreign-funded extremisms. In fact, the message is spreading rather fast. Patriotism is contagious. And just like that, guys, what began as a midnight firebombing in Texas has triggered an international reckoning. But at home, the moment that we've been waiting for had arrived. America was about to declare victory, not just politically, but spiritually. So October 18th, 2025, the night will be remembered as the moment that America turned the page. President Trump addressed the nation from the Rose Garden, sunlight fading behind the flag, declaring, "We are not done apologizing for defending our country." Behind him stood the agents from the DOJ, ICE, and the FBI. I'm talking about the same men and women who had faced down chaos in the streets. They weren't villains in some media narrative anymore. They're actually heroes. Now, across the country, church bells rang. Small towns held candlelight vigils, honoring the officers that were attacked during those lawless years. Even former skeptics admitted something had shifted. The fear was gone. The silence was broken. The patriots had reclaimed their voice. Portland's skyline, once cloaked in smoke, gleamed again under the fireworks. And as the chants of USA echoed through the night, kind of felt a lot more like celebration than it felt like redemption. Trump ended his speech with one line that will be remembered forever. "This is your country again, and together we're never giving it back." Ladies and gentlemen, America has woken up. The storm is over. The rebuild begins. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share, because history isn't being written by the media anymore. It's being written by you guys.